welcome to another video on Seiya Legend of Justice. Now in today's video I will be making an updated tier list for all of the characters in this game. Now it has been a really long time since I last made a tier list for this game, and that's because I was kind of thinking whether tier lists even make sense nowadays. Back in the days I used to make one for PvP and one for PvE, and I differentiate between the two because some characters just perform a lot better in PvE compared to PvP. The classic example I always use, for example, is Agati. He has this ability, Skillful, which makes him able to stay on the field for 4 seconds even when he's killed off. Now in PvE, the enemies are much higher level than you, so normally your characters get killed off very quickly, and having this ability to stay 4 seconds alive, no matter how much stronger the enemies are to you, is very important, because if you're able to survive, that basically kind of help you to protect your back row and then allow your character to actually use their skills and try to turn the battle around. So this is very big advantage in PvE, whereas for PvP, an extra 4 seconds is not as important in comparison to some other offensive skill. So Agati is one character who would be very good in PvE but not PvP, and conversely, for example, like Hugo Got Close, Minos, etc. They are very good in PvP once you're able to release their skills, but in PvE, because they're so fragile, they tend to be killed up before they can even use their skills, so they wouldn't be very good in PvE, but very good in PvP. So you can definitely see some characters perform very differently depending on the type of content, and that's why I tend to make my tier list video for PvP and PvE separately. But now, I think the game has evolved to a stage where both PvP and PvE doesn't quite describe the characters anymore. Because if we actually take a look at PvE content, what you see is that you're normally blocked by power. For example, here it says my team needs at least 38 million power to even try or even attempt this stage. Whereas if you actually take a look at my power level, it's only 37.7 million. So it's close, but it's not quite enough, and therefore I can't even try this battle. And normally what tends to happen is that as soon as you have the power, you can beat the stage. So it doesn't really matter about the characters anymore. It's more about whether you have enough power to try the stage. So that's kind of the stage of PvE story maps. So that's kind of why it doesn't make sense for me to make a tier list for that. And then if we talk about PvP, the game is also no longer one team versus another team. It's more like 5 team versus 5 team. And because of that, you kind of need to talk about which characters works well in which team and the team composition. And that's kind of why I have a previous video talking about some of the most meta template that you can make for team. First of all, there's no meta team anymore, okay? There's no one team who can beat all the other team. It doesn't work like that. It's more like a rock, paper, scissors relationship. For example, like a burst team can be a freeze team, but a poison team can be a burst team, but weaker against a zombie team, weaker against a freeze team, that kind of thing. So it's more like a rock, paper, scissors relationship, and that's kind of why it doesn't quite make sense for me to do a tier list on PvP, because one character can be another character because of their team, but it doesn't necessarily mean that character is better than the other character. But that's kind of why I was struggling for a bit to think of, if I am to create a tier list, what would that tier list actually be for? In the end, what I decided on is that I am going to create a tier list based on character priority, because I think right now what the problem most players have with this game is actually deciding on which character to put their resources in, because there are lots of good characters in this game, but you do not have enough resources to level everyone up. So the biggest question people are going to have is that should I level up this character or should I level up a different character? And that's going to be what I'm trying to do my tier list on today. So that's kind of why I have a very simple tier list. Alphabetical order, so you start from S and then A, B, C. I do also have 2 other tiers who I'll talk about when I get to them, and that's basically how I'm going to rank them. So a character in the S tier is normally going to be someone who I think is very important, and you should try to max him out as soon as possible, and they should come at first priority compared to a character at A tier or B tier, whereas the character towards the end, yes, they can still be very useful for certain type of content, but if you don't have them, they're not the end of the world. You can normally replace them with a different character. So don't go too hard on yourself on trying to get those characters. Now, there are obviously also lots of characters who I didn't bother ranking. Just to clarify, all of the characters are going to be needed in this game ever since they have launched the multi-team format. in the labyrinth mode. So ever since you go past level 400, with the exception of light and dark, because there's no. I think the highest level for light and dark is only 250, so you don't need to worry too much about light and dark for now. But for all of the other elements, you come to a stage where you need at least 2 teams. So you need at least 10 characters for each element in order to actually try those stages or try to beat the stages. And then if you actually look at how many characters you have from each element, take example fire. There are only 11 characters in total, right? If you take a look, I have the first row 5 characters, second row 5 characters, and then Shun on the third row. Only 11 characters in total, and only 10 of them for the labyrinth mode. So pretty much every single character is going to be needed right now in the game. So there's no such thing as a character is completely useless. All character has a position, but it's just that certain characters are not replaceable, and that's kind of why I made the tier for Mei's utility. Those characters you can't get away; you need to have them in the tier, in the teams. Whereas other characters, you have a choice between playing them or a different character, but vast majority of the time you will be needing them in some type of content, mainly the Maze versions, the Labyrinth versions. So bear that in mind. No character is absolutely useless in this game anymore. You pretty much have to use every single character at some point in this game. Okay, so with all of those contexts out of the way, let's start off from the top. Um, First of all, S tier. Those are the characters who I think should be your number one priority to get them. There are 3 characters who stand out the most. I can almost make them into a different tier, but I don't want to create too many tiers. So I just put them up front, and they're gonna be Ikki got close, Shun got close, and Seiya got close. All 3 are very important. Depending on the stage of the game, some are more important than others. If you are just starting out the game completely from beginning, my priority is probably gonna be Iki got close, then Seiya got close, then Shun got close. But if you're more towards the end game, then I'll probably say it's more like Shun got close, Iki got close, Seiya got close. But they're all very important. Iki got close probably stood out the most because he is playable even at 5-star. So that's kind of why I tend to put him as a first priority. But even if you do not want to level him up completely, just get at least 1 copy and he will already do very well for you. And the reason is because he has a skill which basically means he doesn't die as long as you have someone else. So even at 5-star copy, he's going to be very useful. Then we have someone like Shun got close, who is playable in all version of the mode, and he's also very flexible. Like even when I have this multi-team guide, even though I put Shun got close here, he can be actually put into every other team out there. Like he is so flexible, he can fit in every single team and make them much better. So that's kind of why he is going to be very, very good. I would argue in PvP he is going to be more useful than Iki got close because Iki got close still have that bit of a condition where you need other character to be really good and actually survive for a while. Whereas Shun got close can literally just be played everywhere. So Shun got close is just so useful, and that's kind of why he's going to be very, very good. And he is also playable in boss battle, so that's also another reason why he should be one of your first priority. And then we have Seiya got close. Seiya got close is not going to be really important for you in this early game because he does have this ability where he is able to interrupt enemies opening skill. So for example, if you face him up against a Potomi, facing him up against a Camus, facing him up against an enemy Sagittarius Seiya, he is going to do very well in those situations. So he is going to have some bit of utility early game, even if he's not maxed out. And then on top of that, he is also one of the best damage dealer for boss battle. So normally you do want to have one yourself. Normally the way it goes is you either have one of Seiya go close or Leo go close. Even if you do not have enough resource to max out them, both of them you need to have at least one, then you borrow the other one from friends. But obviously Seiya go close is a lot more useful in different situation than Leo go close. So normally you want to go for Seiya go close rather than Leo go close. But that's kind of why Seiya go close is just very important. Once again, he is useful in PvE because he has this ability to interrupt enemy opening skill. He is very good in boss battle, pretty much must have for boss battle. And then for PvP, he's no longer first team, but he's kind of borderline first team, second team for PvP. So he's still very good from PvP perspective as well. So you definitely need him as well. So those 3 by far the top character in this game. Then we move on. Hugo got close. Hugo Go Close really shines in PvP. He is possibly, I want to say, other than like I want to say like those three characters, Sean Go Close, Iki Go Close, and Hugo Go Close, they are the three best characters for PvP, and they can pretty much work in any kind of PvP team. Like Hugo Go Close is very fragile, so you do need sometimes needs a bit of support to make sure either he is able to launch his skill quickly or he's able to survive long enough. But if you're able to do that, he's almost like a must-have on your first team for PvP, and I kind of need to respect that, so that's why I need to put him here. He is also okay in PvE. Like if you play him by himself in PvE, he tends to die very quickly. But if you play him in a freeze team, then he is also one of the best PvE teams out there. So once you consider those two aspects, you kind of need to put him up onto this list. He also have a very unique ability where he's able to nullify enemy passive with his ultimate skill. That's very unique. Not many characters are able to do that. And out of all the characters who have this ability, he's the one who's the most useful and the most versatile. So that's kind of why he's probably going to be my number 4 on this list. On a tie with Poseidon. Poseidon is also very good because Poseidon can be used in PvP, in PvE, and boss battle. Not as good damage as say a Go Close in boss battle. Not as good as a DPS compared to Iki Go Close in PvP or PvE. But still, he is going to be used, especially when you have to fill multiple teams. The other standout thing for him is that he has this ability where he can dispel buff with his ultimate. So from a buff dispeller, so if you want to play him as a utility, he is really good there. And also, even if you only have one copy, so at 5-star, because his ability of blocking all damage for 5 seconds, he's almost in a category similar to Agati, where even if the enemies are much higher level than you and you are only at 5-star, he's still going to work pretty well for you. Just having that 5-second immunity and protect the rest of the team for 5 seconds, that's pretty much good enough by itself. So that's kind of why I also say Poseidon is very good and should be one of your top priority. Then we move on to Suiko. Suiko, best golden arrow character out there. If you have to pick one golden arrow character, it should be either Suiko or Shun, Virgo Shun. Virgo Shun is more for his ability and support purposes, whereas for Suiko, he's just a better all-rounded character compared to Virgo Shun. So, that's kind of why he's going to make it to the list. He is going to be important for you in PvP. He's going to be important for you in PvE. He does absolutely nothing for boss battle, but still, considering he's a golden arrow character who have the ability to compete with other characters who are light and dark, I think that's good enough justification for you to have him as one of your first priority. The other thing that I want to call out for him is that he has this skill 2, which is very fast. Now this is a very fast skill 2, and he has ability to dispel all buff as well. So don't just think of him as like a tank or a healer. He is also very good from like a dispel buff perspective as well. And because he has this really fast, he sometimes able to freeze the enemy before they're able to use their skill. So that's another reason why he's actually very useful in PvP battles or in PvE battles, etc. Then we move on to two characters, two best dark characters in my opinion, Pandora and also Hypnos. I can tell you those two single-handedly help me clear all of my dark labyrinth modes. I can show you my team. For dark, I'm lacking a lot on dark. I'm a lot more packed from light perspective. You can see I have pretty much all light characters leveled up to some extent. Not finished, but leveled up to some extent. Whereas for dark characters, I only have 2 characters who have Constellation max out, and that's Pandora and Hypnos. Hypnos doesn't even have level 30 close. You have some other character like Cannon who is lacking a bit on close and Constellation, and I mainly use him there for his opening skill. But really, the main characters carrying me is Pandora and Hypnos, and I can tell you the two of them, just the two of them pretty much, is able to help me clear all of the dark labyrinth mode, so you kind of need them. To me, Pandora has been more useful than Hypnos because if you don't have Pandora, you won't be able to even clear a single stage. Whereas if you don't have Hypnos, you can normally at least cheat your way through the dark mazes by using some combination of like Senators or Hades Shun, who are playable even at 5-star. But Pandora is like a must-have. So those two definitely the best dark characters out there, and all you need for the Dark Labyrinth mode. Then we have Ayakos. Ayakos is a character who is very good for PvP and pretty much just for PvP because he once again have this ability to destroy the enemy's passive abilities. So similar to Hugo got close, but this one because it's only for one enemy, but he can do this at the start of battle. So that's kind of what makes him unique comparison to Hugo got close. But because it's only to one character, that makes him positioning very important. So that's kind of why he's only used for offensive PvP rather than defensive PvP. But out of all the characters for offensive PvP, he is the only one who can truly counter EK got close. So he deserves a space just for that. So yeah, that's kind of why I put him on the top tier. Then we have Roshidoko. He is probably not as good in comparison to other characters, but considering he is an astral character that you can get for free and still have very strong use in PvP with his off interruption, etc., he deserves the top tier in my opinion. And then lastly, I have Araya Shaka, a very expensive character. But if he's actually leveled up, he's going to be one of the strongest characters in the game. Once again, he has this ability to nullify passive. I mean, you need his clothes in order to do that. So that's kind of why he needs a lot of money in order to actually get him to that high. But if you do happen to have him, he is undoubtedly one of the best characters in the game. But he costs so much, that's why I put him at the bottom of the tier because even though he is good, less of a priority considering how much cash you need in order to get him. So that's kind of my top tier. Then we have the next tier, who are my A tier characters. They are also good, but normally they are not so good enough that they are playable by themselves. They normally need some bit of support, so that's kind of why I knocked them down a tier comparison to the other characters at the top tier. Starting off from Shurigokos. Shurigokos is the best protector for front row, and basically he really strong in PvP because he is able to enable another DPS, for example, Poseidon or Shurigokos. Seiya got close to be played up front, and that almost become a team by itself. I mentioned this in my formation video, by the way. I call the name like Seiya Shuru, but it's pretty much a Shuru plus one other DPS up front. Normally, it should be Seiya got close or Poseidon because they are the two characters who are able to defeat the entire enemy team by themselves if they survive long enough. So that's kind of why you normally pair them up with Shurigokos. So Shurigokos is very good in PvP. Really good in PvE as well because you can even go into some really freaky team lineup where you have Shurigokos protecting, let's say, Aphrodite, and that becomes your force team for PvE. Like I said, in PvE, because the enemies are so much higher level than you, it's really difficult to survive. And having Shurigokos as a cheat way to get one character to survive long enough, that's actually going to make a massive impact as well. So you cannot ignore the impact it's going to have in your PvE battle. So that's kind of why I just think he's very good. The only reason why I don't have him at top tier is because, like I said, you actually need a really good DPS to go alongside with him to actually make the difference. So that's kind of why he's one tier below. Then we have Leo Close. Best character for boss battle, even better than Seiya Close. But he kind of lacks in consideration in PvP and PvE in comparison to, say, Gokos. And that's kind of why I say if you have to make a choice between the two of them, normally people go for, say, Gokos first before Leo Gokos. So for that reason, I'll have to knock him down to only 8 tier. Then we have a bunch of characters who are more free-to-play friendly because they're not light and dark. Leo Aurora, you need his constellation for him to do well. But when he have his constellation maxed out, he is going to be the best support character for boss battle. He is going to be extremely important in the monthly event, which I don't have it open. But every now and then there's a monthly event where you are competing against other peoples in the server for who can clear off the it's normally the 7 pillars for the sea, the Poseidon. War is normally the 12 zodiac houses for battling up against Pope at the end. Normally, for those kind of game modes where you're in a race battle to rank in the top 300 for a free light and dark chest. Um, Leo Aurora is a must-have because he is able to inflict electricity onto the enemies. Let me show you. He is able to inflict electricity onto the enemies when he uses his ultimate skill, and also with his constellation he's able to do that for 15 seconds. So the enemy is always under electricity, and therefore when enemies under electricity they take more damage, and therefore you're able to clear out the maps quicker. This is a massive game breaker for those type of game modes. So overall, when you're thinking you need to play him every single month in order for a chance for a free light and dark character, that's pretty important by itself. And also, like I said, he is the best support character for boss battle, so you kind of need to have him. So once again, really, really important character, even though he is, one of the free characters you can get, theoretically, because it's not Light and Dark and he's not Golden Arrow. Then we also have two other characters who are in a similar kind of situation, Asterion and also Sirius. They are also going to be used in the same game mode because Sirius is gonna give you Cosmo at the start of the battle, which is once again allow you to beat the stages a bit quicker, so therefore you have a faster clearing time compared to others. And similarly for Hound Asterion, sometimes you need that extra bit of buff in order for you to have that extra damage. And also every now and then when you have a bit of a restriction where you can't use assassin characters or can't use skill characters, and therefore your damage have to come from like assist characters, then Hound Asterion is not actually bad from damage perspective either, and he can be used for boss battle as well. So that's kind of why he's actually quite versatile in a lot of game modes. So once again, even though he's only a silver close knight, you should be getting them. All right. But there are also two other characters, Golden Arrow characters, who are equally as useful, and that's going to be Sagittarius Seiya and also Vergoshun. Vergoshun already mentioned briefly before. His ability to give extra damage in boss battle is normally means he is probably out of all the support character for boss battle, the number one is going to be Leo if you have his constellation max out, and then the number two is going to be Vergoshun. So from boss battle perspective, you kind of need both of them. And the other advantage is also when you have his clothes at level 30, he is able to release his ultimate skill at the beginning of the game, which once again allows you to increase the damage of your own character, weaken the damage of the enemy, weaken the defense of enemy, and once again, in the same game mode, when you are in a race trying to clear the stages faster than other people, you kind of a lot of time need to use Vergoshun no matter what, just for this ability. So that's kind of why he's also going to be used in a lot of content. So that's why he's good. Sagittarius Seiya, he is able to, he's an OG character who pretty much defined the whole burst team by himself. So he get a nod from me purely from that perspective. The burst team is still one of the best team for PvE, even though he kind of no longer any good at all in PvP. But from PvE perspective, burst team is still very strong. So that's kind of why you still want Sagittarius Seiya for PvE content. But the other main upgrade that made Sagittarius Seiya really, really strong is once again in the game mode when you are having a race trying to beat other people. With the addition of this Avraya, Sagittarius Seiya is actually able to nullify all of the enemy passive for up to the first few seconds when he uses his opening attack. And that's actually really important because what this allows you to do is you're able to remove the passive of enemies Iki, you're able to remove the passive of enemy Agati, and that basically allow you to beat those stages in the first 3 or 4 seconds, as opposed to if you actually let Agati use his immortality ability, then it will take you at least like 7 or 8 seconds in order to beat that stage. So having say Sagittarius Seiya, even if he's not able to do damage, just having the virtue of this Araya on him, you are able to shorten a lot of time, the clearing time of those stages by at least 2 or 3 seconds, and that by itself is massive for those game modes. So that's kind of why Sagittarius Seiya to me is actually quite important for that one specific game mode. But still, that one specific game mode can give you a free Light and Dark every single month. So you can't ignore the importance of that. So that's kind of why I'm going to rank him very high in terms of priority. Okay, then we move on to a bunch of other characters. Saga Light, very good character, mainly because of the fact he has this OP trigger skill that he can drop a meteorite, which reduce all of the enemies' HP by 50%. That is one of the best skill in the game, full stop. It's always going to be useful in PvE no matter what happens, because no matter how strong the enemy are, you can half their HP. Absolutely massive. However, in contrast to other characters on the top tier who can beat the stages by themselves, Saga Light doesn't actually have very strong ultimate. So what normally tends to happen is that yes, Saga Light can cut their enemy HP by half, but you still need someone else, another DPS on your team, to finish the job for you. So that's kind of why Saga Light to me is a lower priority than other characters at the top tier. Then we move on to Athena Gold Clothes and Surplus Shun. They are very good in PvE because every now and then the biggest struggle in PvE normally tend to be when there's an enemy Seiya Gold Clothes or when there's an enemy Sagittarius Seiya. In fact, they are the most annoying stages in PvE and the only stages I can see where someone may be struggling. And as a result, both of them are one of the few characters who are able to counter those characters. So to me, from PvE stages, they actually are very important that you need to have pretty much both of them, to be honest, because right now I am at a stage where you need 4 teams for PvE stages, and I have seen stages where there are these like 4 Seiya Gold Clothes or 4 Sagittarius Seiya all at the same time, and you need as many opening protection character as possible. And Athena Gold Clothes and Surplus Shun, they are some of the best ones out there. So you kind of definitely need them for PvE. From PvP perspective, both of them are no longer played in first team because they are absolutely useless up against Shun Gold Clothes. But when you are 5 team against 5 teams, it's very unlikely that your Athena Gold Clothes just happen to face up against enemies Shun Gold Clothes, and in those kind of situations, it actually makes them a bit more playable as your second team or third team in PvP as well. So for that reason, they're not that bad for PvP either. On top of that, Surplus Shun also have the added advantage of being used as a buffer for boss battle because he is actually able to. I mean, you need him to take damage, but whenever he takes damage, he's able to increase the attack and attacking speed for your whole team, and that's permanent as well. Once you have his clothes leveled up, no, when you have his constellation leveled up, that's permanent as well. So that actually makes him really good buffer for boss battle as well. But that's kind of why they do have their unique places, and I think even though they are no longer your first team a lot of the time, in terms priority wise, they are still much needed when you need to fill in multiple teams. And then lastly, I have Aris Mu. Probably not as important compared to others because in PvE he's still a bit fragile. He normally get killed off before he can even use his crystal wall. And in PvP, he is no longer as important now that we have so many good light and dark characters. But considering he's a golden clothes character, one of the characters you can get pretty much for free since the beginning of the game. Like, you can't go away and saying that he's not good. Out of all of the naturally gold knights who are not light and dark, Mu is the best one out of them. Like, if you have to pick a gold close character who's not light and dark and who's not golden arrow, Mu is definitely the best one out of them. So you cannot ignore the fact of that as well. So that's kind of why Mu deserves a spot in my second tier, so in the A tier. Okay, now we move to an interesting tier. This is the tier where I call it the PvE cheat because they're not very good characters. I mean, they're okay characters in PvP, but they're mainly used in PvE, and they hold a special spot in the fact that they can be playable even at 5-star. So even if you don't have a single copy and they're not leveled up, they are very, very good in PvE already. So that's kind of what I call as a PvE cheat team. And in fact, I'm going to give you one team who you can pretty much play from day one and can carry you all the way probably to like chapter 20, 25, or maybe even chapter 30 without any type of investment. And that team is going to be, let me move him down slightly for now just to demonstrate the team. The team is going to be this. Okay, this is a very interesting team, and I can tell you, even having all of them are 5-star, this team is going to be good, and I'll tell you why. And the way you want to line up this team is going to be, like this. Where is it? You normally want to do something like this. If you line it up like this, I can tell you this team can clear those of stages, even if all 5 of this character are only 5-star. And the reason why this works is once again all down to Iki Goku's, the fact that he is able to keep on coming back to life as long as there's at least one other ally on the team. And then what happens is if you take a look at all of the other characters, right? Poseidon guaranteed 5 seconds damage immunity from the beginning of the game. So that basically already means you have at least 5 seconds where all of your characters will be alive, okay? And then even when he's been killed off after the first 5 seconds, your Agati then move up. Agati, when he's killed off, he has at least 4-second immortality, okay? So even when this happens, Agati is killed off, and that's already 9 seconds into the battle. Normally it's more like 10 seconds because Agati can take like another hit before he's killed off. That's already 10-second guaranteed where you are able to survive. When Agati is killed off, then you have Hades Shun coming up. And when Hades Shun coming up, Hades Shun have this ability where he doesn't take any damage unless he is being controlled by the enemy. This then kind of depends on where the enemies are, where they have any control ability, but this normally means Hades Shun should be able to survive for a good 2 or 3 seconds at least until the enemy is able to use control skill. And that basically means that already bought you like up to 15 seconds in the battle. And then you have the likes of Iki Goku, Leo Iki. Once again, even at 5-star, he has the ability to resurrect from this, and when he resurrects, he is going to stun off the enemy for another 2 seconds. So that's another guaranteed 2 seconds. You are able to make sure the enemy are not able to do that. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you just have those 5 characters, even at 5-star level, at 1 copy, only at 5-star, I'm not going to bother to try to fill this up again. But basically, just with those 5 characters, you're kind of guaranteed to stay on the field for at least 15 seconds to 20 seconds. And for those 15 to 20 seconds, Iki Goku is able to do some serious damage because of the fact every single time when he revives, he is going to do a bit of like a ultimate skill, he's going to do a bit of damage, and even when he's dead, he's going to have Phoenix Flame on all of the enemies, and that can seriously take down loads of enemy HP. So this is kind of why I think they are kind of a bit of like PvE cheating, in the sense that you don't even need to level them up. Just have a vanilla copy of them at 5-star, and that can already carry you very, very far into the game. And that's kind of why I think they deserve a special tier for my tier list, for the fact that they are so good, even only at a 5-star copy. So that's gonna be my reasoning why I made almost like a whole new tier just for them. And then Sea Dragon Cannon, this one's more of a common knowledge, but basically Sea Dragon Cannon has this ability where he's able to have an opening skill to confuse one of the enemy and let them use one of their own skill against themselves. Once again, this is an ability that's playable even at 5-star, so you don't need to actually level up Sea Dragon Cannon. And in the early game, especially if you do not have Seiya Goku, this is going to be your best choice in order to counter enemy cannons or enemy Potomi, and that by itself is huge in PvE in early games. And even in later games, you may end up needing to use Seiya Goku for one team, but you still need to use Sea Dragon Cannon for a different team in order to counter those characters. So to me, Sea Dragon Cannon is still a bit of like a cheat sheet for PvE in those stages because he can still be very, very useful even at only 5-star. Okay. Okay, now let's move on to the B tier. The characters here, a lot of them are still good, but I think they are only playable in specific team composition. So that's kind of why I am knocking them down even from the A tier above them. Starting off from this one, okay, Odysseus. Okay, Odysseus is a funny character. He is another character a special character similar to Shaka Araya, but he's so much worse than Araya Shaka, in my opinion, that because they're so expensive, it's very likely you're only going to build one of them. And if so, I see no reason why anyone would go for Odysseus rather than Araya Shaka. The main thing with Odysseus is that he has this ability where he healed two random. He healed. Is it this one? I can't remember which one it is now. But basically, I can't remember which skill. But basically, he just randomly heal an enemy or an ally, and sometimes it can backfire. But I'm not saying he's a bad character. I think like if you have him completely leveled up, he's still gonna do well. But there's just like so many times where the skill can backfire, and considering how expensive it is, and also how good Araya Shaka is in comparison, I just don't think anyone should be leveling up Odysseus unless you're putting serious money into this game. So even though he's good, I can't really give him any higher in terms of like a character priority list. So that's kind of why he's going to just stuck in B tier for me. Then next we have Gemini Cannon. Gemini Cannon to me is a character that gets stronger as the enemy gets stronger. The main thing with Gemini Cannon is that if you take a look at his ability, the main thing you want is his constellation. At max level, when any enemy who attacks him will be confused at the start of battle, and basically that allows you to potentially confuse at least 3 enemies at the start of the battle. And at the same time, he also has this looping skill where he can always consistently confuse one random front row enemy. Now, when Gemini Cannon was first added to the game, it wasn't that important because at that point there wasn't that many strong characters who have played up front. Most people play like defender or play tanks up front, so Gemini Cannon didn't really matter much because what's the point of confusing an enemy tank? It just doesn't add that much value. But as the game progressed and more stronger characters are added, now you have the likes of Poseidon being played up front. You have the likes of Hyuga being played up front. You have the likes of Seiya Gold played up front. You have the likes of Iki Gold played up front. You also have the likes of Shuri Gold, who is actually very good as a debuffer if you're able to steal his skills. So there's actually lots of really good characters who are now being played up front, and the value of Gemini Cannon actually just goes higher and higher because he is always a character who's able to turn the enemy against himself. And the stronger the enemy front row is, the better Gemini Cannon will be. So Gemini Cannon actually got stronger as the meta evolved. So that's kind of what I do feel like he is actually pretty good in those situations. But this is very much dependent on who are you facing up against. So that's kind of why I don't think he's as versatile or as flexible as the other characters at top who will always do pretty well no matter what. So that's kind of why I'm going to rank Gemini Cannon tiny bit down into the B tier. Then we have Minos. Minos. Where's Minos? Minos, really good character. He's just too fragile. I think that's number one problem I have with Minos, and that's why I didn't really go hard on him. He's just too fragile. I think when he works, especially in PvP, he's absolutely deadly, and I've seen some really, really strong Minos. But he just needs so much support for him to survive. I think he is even more fragile than Hyuga Goku, who's already known for one of the most fragile characters in PvP. So Minos is just one of those characters that you need so much support in order for him to actually shine. So that's kind of why I'm going to rank him in B tier for now. But I can tell you something. In future, especially in the Chinese version of the game, once Hades is released, not Hades shown, but the proper Hades is released, Minos is going to jump straight to S tier. Because that version of the Hades is going to improve survivability of all specters, and Minos is going to get the strongest power jump because he's normally really, really fragile. But as soon as Hades is out, he gets so much more protection, and he is actually going to be an absolute deadly opponent in PvP as soon as Hades is added to the game. So for the time being, I am gonna only put him in B tier, but I can tell you in the near future, once Hades is added to the game, he will immediately jump to S tier, okay? But right now, I have to respect this version of the game, and he's only gonna be in B tier. Then we have Thanatos. Thanatos, to be honest, I think he's only good when other parts of the team are able to survive for quite a bit, and that's kind of why he's a bit of a zombie team. and he can only function well when you are up against other characters who can survive for a long time. In a similar way of why Papillon Mule is also in this tier. Both of them, I think, in a similar format. They only really works well when you are stalling the enemies, and also when the rest of your enemies are rest of your characters are able to self-protect themselves for a long time without any support. Now, the problem with Senators is that because he only fit into those specific teams, they're not that versatile. Which is why I don't really want to rank them into higher tiers. But I do want to give a special mention in the sense that Senators, even when he's only a 5-star copy, because of his passive ability, when he dies, he will still be in soul state for a while. He can normally last for an extra, 2 or 3 seconds in the battle, even when you only have him at 5-star vanilla copy. So I do want to give a special mention to that. But unlike Agati, where Agati would like immortality for 4 seconds, no matter how strong the enemy is. This soul state for Senators is still based on his own stats. So if the enemy is actually a lot stronger than you, he can still kill your soul state in like 1 second or 2 seconds. So it doesn't last as long as some of the other characters such as Agati, or for example like Leo Iki, who is guaranteed to stun the enemy for 2 seconds, right? This one is not so much guaranteed, so that's why once again I don't want to put him in this PvE cheat team anymore, because this one's actually a bit more dependent on his own stats. So that's that. Papillon Mule, I kind of already went through that. Only really good when paired up with Iki Gokkos. Also fairly good in the maze, in the wind mazes, as a way to, sorry, not this, in the wind maze of vision. Also very important here because he's one of the few characters who's actually able to survive if you are facing up against enemies such as Seiya or Seiya Gokkos. He's one of the few characters who's actually able to protect your team because he will just release his sleep powder and kind of temporarily interrupt the flow of the enemy attack. So he is actually pretty good for this version. So that's kind of why he is going to be in this tier rather than the C tier. Then we have Cain Abel. Cain Abel, I'll probably move up slightly. I think Cain Abel is very similar to Minos, in the sense that if you can actually get Cain Abel to survive long enough in the battle so that he does his transformations 3 times, etc., also release his dimension, another dimension space effect, I think that he becomes really good. But once again, I just think it's too fragile. Every single time when I see gameplays of him, he just get killed off so quickly that I don't think he is going to be really that useful unless you are seriously higher level than enemies, etc. And also, unlike Minos, who eventually will get power jump with the release of Hades, Cain Abel is not going to get any power jump later on. So I personally, I wouldn't actually rate Cain Abel very high purely because I just think he's too fragile. But if you actually have some kind of like special formation where you're able to help him survive long enough in the battle, yeah, he can totally make that difference. But whether you're able to do that, that's a totally different question. Okay. Then we move on to 3 characters. They are for the freeze team. The best character out of 4 of them, for example, is actually going to be Astra Hugo. But if you have to pick only 1 character out of freeze team, so that you can then maybe pair up with Hugo Gokkos, for example, in PvP, he's the best one out of the freeze team because he also adds a lot of utility usage with his constellation skill, because this can actually help your team to survive, and that's actually really important. This is very important once again in maze battle when you're up against enemies such as Seiya, but just in general, this is actually a really useful ability. But that's kind of why he's a bit better than the other 2 freeze team. But normally the 3 of them are played together in a freeze team, so that's kind of why I put them in B tier, because they don't normally work by themselves. The 3 of them kind of need to be played together. Then we have Libashuru. Libashuru, a solo character by himself. Nothing wrong with him, but all-round the ability not as strong as the other characters at top, so I don't want to put them too high. When you get to the water mazes also, normally what tends to happen is you have one team focused around Aphrodite and one team focused on Libashuru, and Libashuru is pretty much going to carry you by himself in the other team. So I kind of want to highlight the importance of that. And also, if you do play him in a zombie team alongside with others like Ikigokos, Saga Light, etc. He works really well in that team as well. So I do want to respect that. So I'm going to put him in B tier. Then we have Surplus Shun. Surplus Shun, somewhat similar to Gemini Cannon in the sense that you kind of, if you are able to trap and face opposite an enemy who is really, really strong, then you can turn the match around. But this is very much kind of focused on the positioning of the enemy. So in some sense, it's similar to Ayako's in that he needs the positioning very well, but obviously he's worse than Ayako, so that's why he's here. And also similar to Gemini Cannon in the sense that the stronger the enemy are, the better Pope Xion will be. So that's kind of why I also want to put Pope Xion here, because I can't see utilities for him. And also, once again, once you get to the mazes, he is also one of the few characters who is able to counter Seiya Gokos. So you kind of need to respect the fact that he is going to help your team a lot in the Earth Labyrinth. Okay, then we move on to C tier. C tier are characters who are just think they are not as good. Just as simple as that. They are probably still able to make it onto your team every now and then if you have them completely leveled up. But in terms of priority wise, you need a lot more resources in order for them to work. So that's kind of why if I have the same amount of resources, I will focus on one of the other characters at the higher tier. Radamanthus. Radamanthus is a very interesting one. What Radamanthus needs is his Arayashiki, if I can show you. This. Whether Radamanthus works or not, and how good he is, completely depends on this. If you can have this one maxed out and put on him, I can tell you Radamanthus is going to be top tier straight away. If you have this Arayashiki, if you do not, he's going to be all the way down C tier and never be played. It's just as simple as that. So whether you actually decide to put your resources on him, all depends on how many copies of this do you have and whether you want to keep leveling him up. And I will tell you why this is so important. This basically makes him, when you max out, makes him immune to all damage for 2.7 seconds. Okay. If you actually take a look at his skill by itself, I will show you here, so I can show you the close ability as well. Radamanthus, okay. I already showed you Arayashiki can make him immune to damage for 2.7 seconds. When you have his constellation ability on, he is able to shorten the interval by 3 seconds, and his cooldown is only 6 seconds. So basically, cooldown 6 seconds, you reduce it by 3 seconds. So now basically this can be activated for 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds, you can activate this. With his Arayashiki, he's immune to damage for 2.7 seconds out of that 3 seconds. So basically, when you have him with his Araya card maxed out, he only takes damage for 0.3 seconds every 3 seconds. He's going to be essentially unkillable. And that's going to be absolutely amazing in PvE because you actually have someone who pretty much can't be killed off in PvE. And also that makes him playable in PvP in a zombie team as well. So that's kind of why Radamanthus, if you have his card, is absolutely crazy and definitely S tier. But if you do not have that card and you do not want to level up your card, even if you do have it, then he's just not very good at all. So that's kind of why he's going to be stuck here. And similarly for Ophi, Ophi is also very much needed for his card. If you have Ophi's special card, where is it? If you have this card, every single time one enemy is under control, you can do extra damage here. And this has a trigger interval of only 0.2 seconds, and this is absolutely crazy. You can just keep on doing additional damage pretty much every second when this battle is on, as long as there's control. And it's quite easy to have controls because you can have, for example, someone like Papillon Mew who can put all of the enemies on to sleep. Every single time when he evolves, or every now and then when he takes damage, he can put all of the enemy to sleep. So you can constantly trigger this. You also have someone like Camus. Camus is also a really good choice because when you have someone like Camus, if you have his constellation, every single normal attack, you are able to freeze. So every single normal attack, you are able to trigger or freeze extra damage. And that's absolutely crazy. So if you actually, this is actually quite funny. If you don't have the card for Orphe. Orphe is more like a support character. But once you actually have his Araya card for Orphe, he is actually going to become a damage dealer, and that's absolutely crazy. So once again, if you actually have Orphe with his card, I can see him maybe not S rank, but probably A rank. But without his card, to me, he's only going to stay in C rank. So that's kind of my opinion on Orphe. Then we move on to Sorrento. Sorrento was really, really good once his ultimate skill is able to be activated because he can then constantly suppress the enemy. The enemy would not be able to use their ultimate skill, but you can keep on using your ultimate skill because you actually steal their Cosmo from them. And this can be really, really good. The only problem is that you need him to actually be able to release his ability. In PvE mode, normally he is not able to survive long enough to actually release his ultimate. And in PvP, he is just going to be countered by two main characters. Like, for example, Ikigokos, who can constantly burn away enemy Cosmo already. Sorrento just doesn't stand a chance against them in PvP. And also, on top of that, Sorrento, I swear his skill, which one? This skill 4, I think it's actually a really bad skill because every single time what happens is that when he triggers his skill 4, that actually delays when he is able to then use his ultimate skill. So in some sense, if I think if they actually remove skill 4, I think Sorrento is actually able to release his ultimate skill a lot quicker and therefore be a lot more useful in PvP, etc. But every single time, because his skill 4 keep on getting activated, it's delaying when he's able to use his other looping skills and also when he's able to use his ultimate skills, etc. It's just not worth it. So I actually think there's a bit of a backfire going on due to his own trigger skill, so that's a bit unfortunate, and that's why I can only place him in rank C. Then we have Evil Seiya. I think Evil Seiya is very similar to Minos and also King Abel in the sense that he just doesn't survive very long. He's just too fragile. If you can get him to survive for a while so that he can constantly use his looping skill, this looping skill is actually for a really long time, and also it's fairly strong as well because you can constantly essentially confuse the enemy opposite you into doing work for you. So the battle is always like 6 versus 4. So that's actually really advantage to you. The problem is just that he's a bit too fragile and he tend to get killed off too quickly. So I don't want to put him as high as King Abel. I think like if he's at full capacity, I think King Abel is better than him, and both of them needs to survive long enough to make any kind of impact. But that's kind of why I have to make him one rank lower than King Abel. But that's why he's at rank C, was C tier for me. Then we have Eyeless, not a bad character, an all-rounder. But I think it's just that the game just moved on. There's so many good characters. It's no longer good enough for a single damage dealer to make much impact anymore. Like he was actually really good back in the days when there are not as many good characters, and therefore if you are able to focus him onto one enemy DPS and kill off that enemy DPS by himself, you can turn the match around, and that's kind of quite good back in the days. But now, kind of like when you're up against any enemy teams, all 5 of the enemy characters are pretty strong and good enough by themselves. Even if you're able to kill off one of them, the other 4 can still be strong enough to wipe out your team. And therefore, the importance of Auroras is no longer that good anymore. So that's kind of what I don't think is as good in comparison. The only main use for him right now for me is actually more the fact that his skill 2 is quite fast. It's faster than a lot of the other skill 2s. So normally if I actually want to delay when an enemy use their looping skill, I could use my auras facing opposite them to stun them for 3 seconds just to delay the release of their skill by 3 seconds. So that's pretty much the only time when I would actually play him. So you can see he is no longer being used as a DPS. He's more being used as a utility character, as a support character. And considering he is actually have all of the build as a DPS, yet you're not using him as a DPS, that kind of already shows that he kind of fell off from his grades and no longer top tier anymore. Alright. Then we have Aphrodite. Very strong character for maze mode, He was deadly in PvP for a long time when Poison Team was really strong, and he by himself defined Poison Team. Okay, he is the only. If you need one character from Poison Team, that cannot be replaced, it's gonna be him. So that can already kind of tell you how good he is. But Poison Team are not really strong in PvE because Aphrodite cannot survive long enough for Poison to build up. And in PvP, there's just too many characters who can dispel Poison now. There's Shongo Close, there's Pandora, etc. There's just too many characters. There's Papillon Mew, for example. There's just too many ways to counter Poison Team that I don't think Aphrodite and Poison Team as a whole is as good as before. So that's why he's only ranked C. Then we have Desktop. Desktop is interesting. I think Desktop is like a weaker version of Roshidoko because he actually have a lot of interruption, and also he is a bit similar to Desmar, but better than Desmar in terms of Cosmo control as well. But what really shines it for me for Desktop is that he actually have like a trigger ability that he is able to interrupt. I think interrupt the enemy. No, seal the enemy where they cannot cast skills, ultimate skill for 5 seconds when he's killed off. So that basically means he's somewhat playable already, even if you don't have one copy of him. And he has came to some help for me in the water maze mode. So that's kind of why I think he's actually pretty decent enough, and I will kind of want to call him out just for this. And if you do have him maxed out, I mean he's a very new character, so I can't guarantee the performance of him, but just by reading the description, I think when he's completely maxed out, he's like a hybrid of Roshidoko and also Cancer Desma. So I don't think he will be bad either when you completely max out. Obviously not as good as a Light and Dark character, and so that's kind of why I can't put him any higher because pretty much all the characters higher are mostly Light and Dark. But I think he is definitely better than any of the other characters that I haven't mentioned. So I'll have to give him like a C tier just for that. Then we have Io. Io, what makes Io really special is that um, he does passive. If you read this passive in his ultimate skill, I don't know why he put it on the ultimate skill, but he always attack the enemy opposite him, and that's actually really useful because this is one of the few way you can quickly take out the enemy back row. And normally, what you do is you want to face him up against an enemy assist character, one enemy skill character, or skill character. Uh, so basically, when he's facing up against an assist character, he can poison the enemy. When he's facing up against a skilled character, he increases his crit damage, and basically both of them allow you to kill off that enemy very very quickly. And it's one of the easiest way to take out an enemy support unit when they are protected in their back row. Because normally normal attack only hit the front row, right? So if you want a quick way to get to the back, Io is one of the few characters who's able to do that. In fact, I think he's the only character whose normal attacks are able to hit into the back. So that's kind of why he has a special position just for this, and that's why I give him C tier. Then we have Mermaid Tetris. Mermaid Tetris is honestly not a bad character. Because what happens is that she will be always linked to the character and give them extra stats, extra buff, and that's pretty much always good when you have a damage dealer, right? If I paired up Mermaid Tetris with, let's say, Seiya Goklos have much higher defense, survive longer, and can kill off all of the enemy. If I pair up with Hugo Goklos can actually be strong enough defensively to survive long enough to release his ultimate skill, which can change the flow of the battle completely. If I pair it up with Poseidon already have a natural synergy with his ultimate skill, so that kind of makes sense as well, pairing up with Poseidon. If I pair up with Araya Shaka is known for a lot of his skills scaling off based on the difference between his own attack stats and also the enemy attack stats. So therefore, if you have Mermaid Tetris to always make Araya Shaka having higher attack stats than the enemy, that's also really good. So Mermaid Tetris is very versatile, and I can see her always be used somewhere. So I typically Mermaid Tetris is not my first choice when I need to fill out a team. But if for whatever reason I am just missing a slot on a single team, I can always fit Mermaid Tetris there, and I know I won't go wrong with it. So that's kind of why I think Mermaid Tetris deserves a spot in C tier. Then I have Chameleon June. Chameleon June fairly useful in maze mode because she is able to give a bit of like protection, like last minute protection for enemy who's been low on HP because of her trigger skill. So that can be useful when you're up against enemy Sagittarius Seiya, enemy Sagittarius Sagittarius Seiya and Seiya Gokos, etc. So he's quite useful. Sorry, she is quite useful as a result in the Labrys mode for utility. But just more generally, she's one of the few characters who is able to give a lot of Cosmo to your whole team, and that can come in pretty handy. For example, it can be useful up against Iki Gokko because if your Cosmo are higher than the enemy Cosmos, that basically means the enemy Iki is not able to use this Endless Illusion because Endless Illusion is only for enemies with lower Cosmo than your Iki Gokos, right? So, having extra Cosmo can always turn the battle around. So that's kind of why I want to respect that and put Chameleon June in this position in C tier. And then lastly, I have Queen. Queen, I personally haven't used him because he's a golden shell character and hasn't been around for a while. But from what I've seen, I think he's the best DPS for the Earth element. And Earth element doesn't really have much DPS. If I split into the Earth one, what you can see is that the only ones who can be used as damage dealer is like Burgershun to some extent, Shura to some extent. They are more like a semi-hybrid. They're more like a support slash damage dealer. And then the actual pure damage dealer is only going to be Capella and Queen. And Queen is so much better than Capella. Queen is also, a bleed team doesn't really exist right now. But if someone do want to build a bleed team, Queen is basically the equivalent of Aphrodite, but for a bleed team, right? If you think about how important Aphrodite is to a poison team, that's basically how important Queen is to a bleed team. So even though bleed team doesn't quite exist, but if you do want to build it, Queen is your man. So I kind of want to put Queen on the same tier as Aphrodite for that reason, and that's why he is also on the C tier. Lastly, we move on to the maze utility. I already kind of mentioned earlier, because of the fact that you need two teams for maze battle, all of the characters will pretty much get used, but I just want to call out those characters specifically because they hold special utility purposes in the maze battles which cannot be replaced by anyone else. Now, I might make a separate video just for this because I do think it's a quite important topic. But right now, for any kind of PvE stages, the only challenges is when there's an enemy Seiya got close and when there's a Sagittarius Seiya. Those are pretty much the only two obstacles you will see in PvE nowadays. Okay, and the reason why they are really really difficult to face against is because if we take a look at Sagittarius Seiya, he has this ability, opening skill, which do all of damage, and considering how much stronger the enemy tend to be comparison to you in PvE, that can normally kill off 2 or 3 of your characters already, or maybe kill off all 5 of your characters. So this is really, really dangerous to face up against an enemy Sagittarius Seiya. And similarly for Seiya got close, it's not actually his opening skill. People keep on thinking like his opening skill is what's annoying about Seiya got close in PvE. That's not actually the case. The case is actually his trigger skill. Because what happens is that even when you're just battling him normally, he has a chance to do 100% attack damage to all of your characters, even the ones at the back. And once again, that's really deadly because this is a way for the enemy to wipe out your back throw before you can even release your skills. So those two together, they are really, really difficult to counter up against in PvE because they just have a way to deal huge amounts of damage to your whole team before you even have a chance to do anything. And that's kind of why when I say maze utility, those are the few characters who are actually good enough to counter up against Seiya Gokos and also Sagittarius Seiya in those PvE stages. And that's kind of why they deserve a special mention for me. Now, in fact, let me go through them one by one, just so that I don't have to make a separate video in future. Just a bit too lazy. Let's go through all of the elements one by one, okay? When we talk about water element, if you're up against facing Sagittarius Seiya or Seiya God Close, what tends to happen is that you need, for one team, you are going to need Moses, because what Moses is going to be able to do is have this beginning effect, which is able to reduce the damage you're going to take. So that's going to be hugely helpful for both Sagittarius Saiyas opening attack, but also for those random trigger skills that you're going to get from Seiya Goku just attacking into your whole team. So this is going to be very useful. And normally for the other team, what you want to do is you want to play Aphrodite, because when Aphrodite get hit, what's going to happen is sorry, I just remember I should also move. I'll go here. When Aphrodite is going to get hit, he is going to poison all of the enemy with his passive, and that poison also reduces their attacking skills. So as long as you are able to survive one AoE from the enemy, so that you are able to debuff them and weaken their attack, normally you can then survive for the subsequent attacks as well. But that's kind of why Aphrodite is very useful, and that's kind of why Aphrodite and Moses are normally used for protection. However, Marine is also very good, specifically when you are facing up against Seiya Gokus. Marine doesn't help much when you're facing up against Sagittarius Seiya, but Marine does help when you're facing up against enemy Seiya Gokus, and that's that's not really so much about Marine's own kit. It's more the fact that Marine is a warrior character. And warrior character have this one card which is very useful. This is like the only situation where this card is useful when you are facing up against enemies, say a Gokus. But basically, this warrior Arayashiki, what it's able to do is permanently reduce the target's attack by 3.5% for the first 8 attacks. So what you want to do is you want to place Marine, or any warrior characters, in fact, equipped with this card and directly facing up against enemies, say a God close. What's going to happen is say a God close is going to enter duel with that character for the first 6 seconds, and because during that 6 seconds, his attacking speed is going to be the one facing up against, say, a Gokus is going to have attacking speed at 50% higher. So for that 6 seconds, normally what happens is you can do all 8 of your normal attack during those 6 seconds because your attacking speed is a lot higher. So now if we then take a look at the Raya Shiki that we have, because I can do all of my 8 normal attacks onto the enemy, this is gonna reduce enemy attack by 27%, and this is permanent as well. So now what's gonna happen is that even if the enemy, say Gokus, is able to trigger his Knight of Hope, you are essentially gonna only take you're gonna get 27% damage reduction from all of the AoE damage you're gonna take, and that time a lot of times it's like the best protection you can do up against say a Gokus. So all of the warrior characters it's going to do very, very well up against, say, a Gokus in those mazes mode. And that's kind of why I pretty much have all of the warrior characters of each element up high. Now, obviously, if a warrior character is just too weak by themselves, then they're not going to help much. But if we actually take a look at all of the warrior characters, so for water element, there's only Marine. There's Karen as well, if you happen to have Karen leveled up. I don't, so that's kind of why I haven't tested him. I don't know how good he is in that mode. He doesn't look very good when I look at him, so that's why I didn't want to say that. But he could still be useful if you do just want to equip that card onto him. If we talk about fire, you normally the ones you want to put is Dante or Krishna. In fact, so I should put Dante here as well. I don't know why I didn't do that. So Dante or Krishna, I think both of them is normally going to be good. You also have Leo Aurora, but Leo Aurora is tend to be a lot more fragile. So if you actually put Leo up against, say a Gokus, it's actually a lot more likely that your Leo will be killed off in the process, and you don't want to lose one of your allies so quickly. So normally Dante is actually a better choice if you are facing directly opposite, say a Goku. So that's why Dante should also be in this maze utility list. Krishna should be there for the fact he's a warrior character, but also he does protect against enemy Sagittarius Seiya as well, so he's quite versatile because he also have this opening shield. So that's why he's very important as a utility character for the mazes. Then we moved on to Wind Element. Wind Element, there's quite a few here. Dio and Seiya, Astral Seiya, they're too fragile. So you don't really want to put them up against Seiya Goku because they will just die too quickly. So that's why I don't recommend putting those two up. But in terms of the warrior class character that you can put up against Seiya Goku, it's going to be Suiko and also going to be Isaac. Now, Suiko is very tanky by himself, so he definitely have no problem surviving. Isaac actually do okay as well because Isaac have this passive ability where every single normal attack of Isaac is going to attach extreme icy aura, and that's going to reduce enemy hit rate by 20%. So once again, because you will be entering duel with Seiya Gokus, your attack is going to attack into enemy Seiya Gokus. So not only Seiya Gokus is going to have reduced damage because of the warrior Arashiki you're going to put on Isaac, he is also going to have reduced hit rate by 20% because you will be inflicting him with extremely icy aura. So once again, Isaac is actually a pretty decent character if you do want to face up against Seiya Gokus. So that's why I also want to put him in this maze utility. Then for the Earth characters, all three of them can be put into facing up against enemy Seiya Goku because all three of them are pretty bulky. I already put Surplus Shun, sorry, not Surplus Shun, Pope Shun and Sirius up early, so that's why they're not here. And also for this guy, he's not actually on this tier list that I stole from this website, so I can't actually put him. But if he is available in the game, he will be here as well, okay? So that's kind of what I would say for the Earth team. And then also for the Earth element, Kasa and Astro Shun, they will be the characters that you will need in order to protect against enemy Sagittarius Seiya, because Astro Shun have this opening ability which increase your defense from the beginning of the battle, so that can potentially protect you against enemy Sagittarius Seiya, and also Kasa is able to protect you because Kasa has this telepathy which can prevent one of your character getting killed off. So you don't need to put as many defensive characters as a result. You can put like one glass cannon and there's three other defensive character, and Kasa is able to protect that glass cannon as a result already. So that's why Kasa is also very useful up against enemy Sagittarius Seiya. So that's why he's also in this utility bit. And then lastly, I also want to put Argo because Argo is actually quite interesting. Argo also have this passive where trigger ability, sorry. Whenever he's getting hit by any damage, he has a 12% chance to petrify the target. Alright, that's actually really useful because what happens is that if Sagittarius Seiya or Seiya Goku do end up doing AoE attack onto your whole team, you have a chance to actually petrify them in return. So even though you're still taking damage, because you would then be controlling them for 3 seconds and they do have really high damage output, that can a lot of time actually help you win the battle or overturn the battle. And the nice thing is, you may think this is only a 12% chance, but in PvE, you can keep on retrying the stage until this petrify has been activated, right? So it doesn't really matter there's only 12% chance because you can keep on repeating the stages until this is activated. So for that reason, he is actually quite good as a way to counter enemy Sagittarius Seiya and Seiya Gokus as well. Okay, so that's why I think all of them are quite unique in the sense that they are actually able to help you to overcome the most difficult stages in the labyrinth mode. Now, like I said, all of the other characters, they can still be good, right? They can still be good because you will still be using them as you fill in a team of 10 characters, but they are just not as irreplaceable as those ones. Like if I have to swap out any one of them for a different character, it's not going to have a massive impact in terms of the battle. But if I don't have any one of them for a particular counter to Sagittarius Seiya or Seiya Cockclose, then you have no chance of winning that battle. So that's kind of why I think they're slightly more irreplaceable than the rest of the characters who I didn't mention. So yeah, so that's going to be my tier list. This is a really long video because I do want to provide a bit of an explanation for all of the characters. But yeah, this is going to be how I think you should be going after the character in terms of priority tier list.